Hi, and welcome to episode 101 of Toke Signals TV, where we bring you the biggest in cannabis and hemp news stories every week. I'm Steve Elliott, the editor at TokeSignals.com, and I'll be guiding you through the news. First, let's look at our Toke Signals bud pick of the week. We've got a pretty strain here named Chernobyl. She's 5 weeks into flower, got about 3 weeks to go, and she's looking good. Let's do the news now, shall we? In the United States this week, evidence was revealed showing that legalizing marijuana is unlikely to turn kids into potheads. Now, supporters of the war on drugs often claim that loosening restrictions on marijuana use, such as decriminalization, allowing medicinal use, legalizing the stuff completely, or even just discussing legalization, will, quote, send the wrong message to young people and lead to increased teen drug use. But the evidence has repeatedly shown this notion to be inaccurate. According to 2 new studies published in the past month, teen marijuana use has fallen since 1996, during which time 34 states have passed some sort of medical marijuana bill. Despite considerable changes in state marijuana policies over the past 15 years, marijuana use among high school students has largely declined, concludes one of the papers published in the journal Drug and Alcohol Dependence. That study looks at cannabis use among all high school students in the United States as measured every 2 years by the National Youth Risk Behavior Survey. Although our results do not suggest that the rapid pace of change to state-level marijuana policies has resulted in immediate and drastic increases in adolescent use, continued monitoring is necessary to observe how trends change over a longer period of time. The researchers advise, pointing to one uptick since 2009 as probably being statistically insignificant. The other study, published in the American Journal of Drug and Alcohol Abuse, suggests that strong disapproval of marijuana use among younger teens is up sharply from where it was just 10 years ago. That study looked at attitudes toward cannabis and its use, as reported in the National Survey on Drug Use and Health. These numbers also show a drop in rates of marijuana use from 2002 to 2013, with disapproval up sharply among teens aged 13 and 14 and roughly flat among older teens. What many people forget is that legalization doesn't necessarily make marijuana easier to get for kids, because pot is already easy to get in most places and has been for some time now, try 40 years or so. Legalization, since it involves a 21-year-old age limit, can actually make it more difficult for kids to buy weed. In Washington State this week, the state announced it's going to open retail marijuana license applications with no initial cap. The Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board on Wednesday announced that beginning October 12th, it will accept new retail applications using the priority criteria set forth in the law. Now, according to the board, there will not be an initial cap on the number of licenses issued. Potential applicants are strongly encouraged to ensure that they have all of the required documentation before applying, the board announced. Failure to provide required documentation in a timely manner will result in the application being withdrawn. However, you will be able to apply again. The WSLCB adopted emergency rules and issued new draft rules to begin the public process of aligning the medical marijuana market with the existing recreational market. Many activists, of course, would more cynically call it eliminating the medical marijuana market in favor of the recreational market. The board's actions are the result of 2015 legislation, the so-called Cannabis Patient Protection Act, our rather cruelly ironic name for SB 5052, sponsored by Senator Ann Rivers, which established a priority system for licensing existing medical marijuana outlets. The emergency rules, which are effective immediately, allow the board to begin the process of licensing new retail outlets that may sell both medical and recreational marijuana. Existing recreational marijuana stores may also apply for an endorsement to sell both. If Phase 1 was the implementation of the recreational marijuana marketplace, then today marks the beginning of Phase 2, the public process of aligning the medical marijuana system with the existing recreational system, said Board Chair Jane Rushford. Now, the WSLCB will begin accepting retail license applications on October 12th. Applicants will be processed for licensure, prioritized as established by law. There will not be an initial cap on the number of retail licenses that will be approved. Medical marijuana outlets, also known as dispensaries, must be licensed by July 1st, 2016, or face closure by local authorities. In addition, non-retail cooperatives, which consist of up to 4 persons who grow for personal medical use, may register with the board after July 1st, 2016. First priority will be applicants who applied for a marijuana retail license prior to July 1st, 2014, operated or were employed by a collective garden prior to January 1st, 2013, have maintained a state and local business license, and have a history of paying state taxes. Second priority for licensure will be applicants who operated or were employed by a collective garden prior to January 1st, 2013, have maintained a state and local business license, and have a history of paying state taxes and fees. Third priority will be applicants who do not meet the requirements for priorities 1 and 2. Now, public hearings will be held where the public may comment in person, and public comments will also be taken by email and fax, and by regular postal mail. For the snail mail address, email address, fax number, and the locations, dates, and times of those public hearings, see the article on Hemp News. Washington State to open retail marijuana license applications with no initial cap. Also in Washington this week, some rather interesting news. A Seattle IRS agent charged with bribing a marijuana store owner. This Internal Revenue Service agent was charged on Monday with soliciting a bribe and accepting payment from a local recreational marijuana business owner. Paul Hurley, 42, allegedly asked for $20,000 in cash from the I-502 store owner in exchange for giving lenience in a tax audit. That's according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. Hurley was charged in U.S. District Court. The owner of the marijuana store reportedly did not ask for leniency. Hurley presented the business owner with a tax bill for 2013 and 2014, totaling more than $290,000, but claimed he had saved the businessman more than $1 million, according to prosecutors. The agent then asked for $20,000 in exchange for the help, according to a news release from the U.S. Attorney's Office. Business deductions aren't allowed on federal tax returns for marijuana businesses, and the gross revenue is taxable because cannabis is a Schedule I controlled substance, illegal under federal law. The businessman contacted law enforcement, who witnessed 2 money exchanges between the man and the IRS agent. Hurley, who's been with the IRS since 2009, according to the news release, was arrested after the second money exchange on Monday. Hurley is charged with 3 counts of soliciting and agreeing to receive a bribe by a public official. He could get up to 15 years in prison and a $250,000 fine, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. He was released at his Monday court appearance on his own recognizance, pending future hearings. The FBI and the Treasury Inspector General for the Tax Administration are investigating this case. In Pakistan this week, the military conflict there is threatening the marijuana crop. Pakistan's traditional marijuana crop, the basis of its thriving hashish industry, is being threatened by Pakistan's decade-long war against terrorism and Islamist militancy. Harvest would traditionally take place in October, and hashish production not long after that. But much of the crop in the Tarab Valley in Pakistan's tribal belt has been abandoned and is in danger of becoming yet another casualty of this conflict. After Taj Muhammad Afridi planted cannabis seeds in February, the Pakistani military began a series of operations in the Tarab Valley against Taliban fighters who were hiding out there. The operation forced Afridi and 250,000 other residents to leave their homes. Many of them are still waiting to return. "We know that our crops are still there," said Afridi, 65, who has for decades helped make stoners mellow around the world, "but I don't know what the future will be. Will the military allow this?" According to some other residents who have returned home, the military forces are now targeting Pakistan's profitable hash industry to try to establish more government control over this traditionally lawless border region. Paramilitary forces have in recent weeks erected a dozen checkpoints and are enforcing a ban on transporting hashish through tribal areas. Dozens of roadside hashish stands have been closed, and residents say even private homes are being raided. But growing cannabis is part of the culture of the Tarab Valley and the chief source of income for several tribes. At least 100,000 people make their living cultivating or selling hash, according to Hamid ul-Had Khalil, a member of Pakistan's parliament. Families in the Tara Valley on the southern edge of the Hindu Kush mountain range grow cannabis on small plots of land cascading down from an elevation of 8,000 feet. Their valley produces around 100 tons of hash a year, according to residents. Now, much of that hash ends up in the cities of Pakistan, which is a big reason hippies and pothead college students flocked to the area in the 60s and 70s and early 80s. But Pakistani hash is also smuggled around the world. Residents of the Tara Valley claim nobody else can produce hashish quite like theirs, saying they've been breeding the highest quality marijuana for decades. The summer climate of the valley, with warm days, brief showers, and cool nights, allows the cultivation of monster plants that can grow taller than 15 feet, according to residents. The plants are cut in October but left bundled in the fields for 2 more months. They get covered in snow, which residents claim is a secret to producing potent hashish. The snow turns the buds red like a radish, one farmer said. Entire families gather to make hashish after the plants are dry. The marijuana flowers are beaten with sticks so that keef, a dust-like resin formed mainly of trichomes, falls to the ground. That's swept up and packed into a bag, usually of goat skin, so that it gels into hashish. The students, the doctors, and other people who know all want charas from the Tara Valley, said Zakirullah Afridi, 35, using the local term charas for hashish. The taste is good, he said. It's sweet, it's oily, and it makes you drowsy. While the tribesmen themselves use hash as medicine for diabetes, high blood pressure, constipation, sexual performance, unhappiness, and obesity, most of it is sold on the black market. Some Tara Valley cannabis farmers said they earn up to $10,000 a year, a respectable amount in one of the world's most remote regions. When the Taliban controlled the area, it taxed marijuana crops but did not otherwise interfere in the hashish trade, according to residents. Now, as the Pakistani military tries to exert more control, residents insist they have wide latitude to set their own laws. But the army, which first entered the Tara Valley in 2003, has arrested at least 100 residents in recent months for drug offenses, according to resident Shah Nawaz Afridi. Even carrying 1 kilogram is now a difficult task, said Mohammed Karim Afridi, 43. They're checking every vehicle, even the nuts and bolts. And if they have any idea someone is keeping hashish at home, they raid. A spokesman for the Pakistani military refused to comment. Pakistan's anti-narcotics force also wouldn't comment, except to provide statistics showing that it has seized 57 tons of hash between March 1st and August 31st. In Florida this week, the Florida Cannabis Act would legalize marijuana and regulate it like alcohol. This is a new drive to legalize recreational marijuana in Florida. It was launched last week. West Palm Beach attorney Michael Minardi is proposing to regulate marijuana like alcohol. Minardi's group, Regulate Florida, needs 683,149 valid voter signatures by February 2nd, 2016, to get the Florida Cannabis Act on the ballot for November 2016. The group is going for 1 million signatures to make sure. The proposal would amend the Florida Constitution, making buying marijuana roughly the same as picking up a bottle of liquor at the store, according to Minardi. We trust people with alcohol. We trust people with tobacco, he said. Now, as long as you're 21 or older, you should be able to buy and use marijuana responsibly, Minardi said. These people who are using drugs, are responsible adults, and they should have the choice to do that, he said. If approved, the measure would set a deadline of July 2017 for Florida state government to begin licensing and regulating commercial marijuana growers, processors, and retailers. Education can change people's perspectives, Minardi said, and the new law would help clear out jails. Let's stop wasting resources, Minardi said. I can sit in court for hours based on a cannabis case. We have courts that are clogged, backlogged on systems, hard to get dates for hearings and things of that nature, and a big part due to misdemeanor cannabis cases. We're going to use science and we're going to use stats in the campaign, Minardi said. In March, Minardi won a landmark case successfully using medical necessity as a defense for marijuana charges against a Florida client. Ironically, the recreational legalization initiative he's sponsoring could hurt the chances of success for a retry of United for Care's medical marijuana proposal, which fell just short at the polls in 2014. Now, it takes 60% of the popular vote to amend the Florida Constitution, and medical marijuana got 58%. According to conventional wisdom, having two competing cannabis initiatives on the same ballot hurts the chances of both initiatives. The confusion surrounding two separate marijuana initiatives could also negatively impact signature gathering efforts for both counts. Minardi has teamed with fellow attorney Bill Woolsuffer and cannabis activist Karen Goldstein to form the corporation Sensible Florida and the associated group Regulate Florida. With United for Care's medical marijuana drive 2 years ago, largely bankrolled by wealthy Tampa attorney John Morgan, Regulate Florida has no such big financial backer to help its campaign, according to Minardi. We don't have a John Morgan or a Sheldon Adelson financing us, Minardi said. We're raising money by selling shirts and spreading the word with our volunteers to sign the petition. The petition is available on Regulate Florida's website for people to download and sign. You must be a registered voter in Florida for your signature to count. In Oregon this week, it was announced that legal marijuana sales began October 1st, and not only that, but past convictions can be cleared. Oregon wasn't the first state, or it wasn't the biggest state either, to legalize marijuana. But when it begins retail cannabis sales next month, the state will blaze a new trail because it will consider applications to clear the record of past marijuana convictions. Paperwork which would forever seal old pot offenses is now available in Oregon, thanks to a new law, and those who complete the process can legally say to any employer, landlord, or anyone else who asks that they've never been convicted or cited for any drug crime at all. 15 years ago, when Erica Walton, then in her 20s, handed a bong to someone who turned out to be a police officer, she was cited for marijuana possession. She paid the fine, but the violation continued to haunt her as part of her record. It's taken away a lot of my life, Walton said as she inked out her fingerprints, which Oregon requires for sealing the file. Walton said the minor citation cost her when she had to disclose it on job applications and for volunteer positions at her children's school. That's why it means so much to me today, she said. While Walton used a state law that allows anyone with a lowest level felony, misdemeanor, or traffic violation, not restricted to drug offenses, to wipe the slate clean after 10 years or longer without another conviction, more serious felony cannabis convictions of the past, including cultivation, will be eligible for record sealing as well. Oregon is one of the first states to really grapple with the issue of what do you do with a record of something that used to be a crime and it no longer is, said Jenny Roberts, professor of law at American University in Washington, D.C. In criminal law reform on marijuana, Oregon has gone further than anyone else, said Leland R. Berger, a Portland lawyer specializing in cannabis cases. In the United States this week, the cannabis machine rolls on as Willie Nelson's new marijuana brand, Willies Reserve, gets funding. Now, country music legend Willie Nelson is teaming up with private investors looking to cash in on a celebrity-endorsed brand of marijuana. Tuatara Capital, a New York-based private equity firm, this week announced its partnership with Nelson, 81, known for such standards as Always on My Mind and On the Road Again, as well as for his well-documented fondness for cannabis. Under the partnership, Tuatara will lead a group of investors financing the development of a legal recreational marijuana brand featuring Nelson's name and likeness. Willies Reserve will be a premium cannabis lifestyle brand, sounds expensive, for recreational marijuana users in states where it is legal, starting with Colorado and Washington, and also other states as regulations allow. Local businesses in those states will grow, distribute, and sell Willies Reserve marijuana based on the brand's specifications and quality standards, according to a press release. I hear stories from people across the country about how the end of marijuana prohibition is improving their lives, Nelson said. Legal marijuana makes sense. Good business will prove it can work in America. Tuatara launched just last year, and the partnership with Nelson marks its first investment. The firm plans to focus on marijuana-related investments. Tuatara had raised $25.8 million towards its debut fund by the end of July, according to a filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission. We're really excited to partner with someone like Willie, who embodies the spirit of American entrepreneurship and conviction to a cause, said Tuatara Chief Investment Officer Al Foreman. According to Foreman, Tuatara was introduced as a possible financial sponsor several months ago to the Willies Reserve team. We're looking for teams that have built companies previously, Foreman said. We're not really focused on early stage risk with this industry. Our goal is to support the types of operators and high quality teams that have established businesses and who know the compliance environment. There is so much innovation happening in the cannabis space, and we are excited about the future prospects of the industry, said Mark Zitman, chairman of Tuatara Capital. We see incredible potential to support the industry in its growth and evolution. It's all happening at an unprecedented speed. Nelson had announced earlier this year that he'd be marketing his own recreational cannabis brand, telling The Guardian, "I've bought a lot of pot over the years, and now I'm going to sell some back." Before we go this week, there's a must-read on TokeSignals.com. It's by our Brazilian correspondent down there, my good friend Sergio Vidal. Sergio's article this week is "Hemp in the Hinterlands Can Save Brazil's Economy." And he gives us a good capsule history of hemp cultivation in Brazil and how it can also be the future of Brazil, the cultivation of industrial hemp. Hope you decide to check it out at TokeSignals.com. Until next week, stay lifted. See you then.